Media Day is here and vibes are immaculate. The Denver Nuggets all gather in the Mile High City as they get ready to take on yet another NBA season. We heard from Ben Tenzer and John Wallace, David Adelman, and from the Denver Nuggets players. Matt Moore was there in person himself, and I think we got a lot to get into. Good vibes only. Y'all, we got a bunch to talk about. That's Matt Moore. This is Swipa, and this is Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome to Locked On Nuggets. This is your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Shout out to y'all. Thank y'all so much for being here with us today. Thank you for grinding all the way through the summer up to this moment. We have officially reached the start of the 2025-26 NBA season, and we have to talk about Media Day. So y'all, make sure before we get started, give us a like, share, and subscribe. We're on the way to 15,000 subscribers, building this community day by day, grind by grind. And y'all, make sure on the audio side, if you're listening to this, give us a 5-star review. Do you love the way Matt Moore, Ryan Blackburn break it down for you? Give them a 5-star review so that way more and more people can listen to the great content being made here at Locked On Nuggets. Matt Moore, number one, it's good to see you again, my friend. How are you, and how are you feeling about today's Media Day?
Good, man. It was great to be back in the building. Great to be back at Ball Arena. Great to see everybody. Great to see Ryan Blackburn and Brendan Vogt and Adam Mares and Chris Marlowe, the man, the myth, the legend, Chris Marlowe, Vinny Benedetto, Bennett Durando, Anil Piro, like the whole crew, Jake Spiro, all my guys and gals in the media room. It was great to see them. Great to see the Nuggets vibes through the roof. That's what you want for Media Day. It's more of like everybody's Media Day should be positive, and if it's not, that's a concern. Like last year, nothing but I think upside. I'm really excited to cover this season. Excited to talk about all the things that were said today.
Look, well, Matt, let's go ahead and get straight into it. So before we get into, I know Jokic and Murray and Cam Johnson, they said a lot of really interesting things today. Adelman, Aaron Gordon, I think, brought something up that we talked about all summer. But you being in the building, can you just kind of give us an audience, especially obviously being a media member, what was the general feel and the energy that you were getting from the building, and what was kind of emanating from the podium as the players and as the coaches in the front office were talking?
So I think that it's not uniform, right? I think that the overall vibe was positive, but it's also there's positive as in like relaxed and just kind of like, hey, like glad to see it. That's how 2023 was, right? After the title, it's like, oh, like we're back. We're just going to do it again. This was just like, okay, we're putting that everything behind us. That was a lot of, I think, the Media Day messages. We're putting last year behind us and we're moving forward. New season, fresh start, lots of changes, long process, but we know where we're going. And David Adelman, I think, was the one that really set the tone there as far as saying, like, that was last year. This is this year. We are, some things are going to stay the same. Some things are going to change, but we're putting all the stuff from last year behind us. And this is a fresh start with this group who has a chance to do something special. I think you see with Nikola was probably the most. Chris Marlowe said that he does not remember him ever being this jovial. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, probably back when he was, a kiddo, first couple of years in the league, but not since, he started being in MVP conversations. Did I see Nikola Jokic this relaxed and happy and just like in a good space versus, Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon were very much like business mode. Like it was like Aaron was like, very honest about with the defense is going to be better. Whatever I have to do, we're going to make sure the defense is better. And Christian was in line with that in terms of setting the tone, setting the effort, and those type of things. The conversation was a lot about Jamal Murray and his leadership over the summer. You could tell that both the front office and coaching staff really wanted to positively reinforce Jamal's decision to do that. And Jamal predictably kind of played it off and was just like, yeah, it was great to do, just something that you need to do if you want to win in this league. So, he was never going to make a big deal out of it or self-aggrandize himself. That's not really the way that Jamal is. Like, Jamal's not somebody who's like, well, I did because, I'm awesome and I'm so great. Like, that's not how he's wired. So that was a big talking point, I think, to reinforce the accountability. But very specifically with David Adelman, this team can do something special. Like, we have the pieces. We just have to put the work in.
So tell me how you feel about this. So when I did a show earlier, the tone that I kind of took away, especially from Ben Tenzer, John Wallace, David Adelman, and then as you said, to close it out with Christian Brown, Aaron Gordon, and honestly from Jamal, just in terms of his demeanor, was accountability and commitment. Because some of the conversations just even around the competitiveness of the roster from David Adelman, some of the conversations from, as we have affectionately learned to call them, Ben Wallace, the duo, just their conversation about the depth of this team and the pieces that are on the roster. And then you hear Cam Johnson talk about his responsibility working with a two-man game, or what he brings to Denver as an individual player, the things that he experimented with as a Brooklyn Net last year. Then you hear with Aaron Gordon talking about the defense. Bruce Brown, I think, really highlighted how important it was for him to be back in the building. Did you get a sense that there was the accountability commitment aspect of it that maybe I got a sense of as somebody watching it online?
Yeah, I think that was a very evident kind of thing. I think there's an understanding. Someone asked Jamal, hey, you and Nikola played together for so long. What's something that you guys can work on and develop this year? And he was like, on-court communication. He's like, so much of our game is just unspoken. We know how to play with each other, but we got to communicate better to get everybody else on the same page. And like, that's a big deal, as I think Jamal for a long time was kind of the emotional heartbeat of the team, especially in the bubble. And then after the injury, I think that got kind of hard for him because he was just like, his body was in a rough spot for him. And it really does kind of seem like Jamal is taking the reins as more of a leader. And Joker mentioned specifically that the old guys being gone and those, said they were friends. He was like, that's hard for me because they were the ones that spoke up a lot. Like, Joker's pretty honest about that. Like, that's not really what he wants to do. Like, he doesn't want to be the one in the locker room that's like not getting in guys' faces, but just setting that tone and speaking a lot. He doesn't want to give speeches. That's not how Joker is wired, but I think he understands that the leaders of this team, the veteran leadership, is Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, and Aaron Gordon. Those are your veteran leaders. Like, that's it now. There's no more KCP. There's no more DeAndre Jordan. There's no Russell Westbrook. There's none of these guys that had a big voice in the locker room. Everybody else is now basically like underneath those guys. And they're the ones that are going to set the tone. And you can tell that one of the things I think is important to kind of point out here is that Tenzer, Wallace, and Adelman don't speak about these things as if they are passing down the responsibility of accountability to the players. It is a system. It is circular. It is a circuit where Wallace and Tenzer are like, we have to do everything that we can to put these guys in the best position to succeed. They talked a lot about wanting the building to be somewhere where people wanted to go to work. Adelman talked about that as that being the most important thing, was to get the culture to a place where people wanted to come in, wanted to be there, wanted to play basketball, and wanted to go to work. Because that's where it was 3 years ago, and it degraded over the last couple of years. But that's like the accountability circle, right? Where it's like, okay, Tenzer and Wallace put the team in the best position. Adelman sets the tone and tries to create the best atmosphere. And Jokic and Murray hold everybody accountable as well as play and be the great players that they are. And that, I think, is a healthy kind of shift in the perspective of this team. There's no one that's no longer kind of writing. Like, everybody's going to have to pull their weight. And that, I think, is really understood. And the understanding of like, hey, I love this quote from Adelman where he said, it's easy to talk about being selfless. It's harder. You actually have to do it. And that, to me, I think is like a really good indication of where they're at as a team, of everybody pulling in the same direction.
There are a lot of interesting themes that came out of today's media day. And again, I think that, Matt, you've done a great job kind of just elaborating on some of the things that you experienced and some of the things that were said. And that portion from Jokic especially, I think is really important. And I think especially getting to the contract talks that I know a lot of people online kind of really saw and said, man, like, there's something here. Like, Jokic said he wants to be here forever. Then there are implications for that, not just with the Denver Nuggets, but around the league as well. We're going to talk about more of that on the other side, and especially talk about Jamal Murray's leadership. We'll be back for more here at Locked On Nuggets. Y'all, the NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet and put down $5. And if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Now, I love FanDuel. I love putting same-game parlays together. I love being able to look at the Thursday night schedule and then the 1 p.m. schedule, Eastern Standard Time in the NFL. I love to be able to put some games together that I know are going to be games that I believe I can get good bets in on. And then I'll do the same thing with the afternoon game, the Sunday night football, and Monday night as well. It makes watching football just that much more exciting. It means you got something more riding on the action. Now, whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. We'll be back for more here in Locked On Nuggets. We're back here for segment 2 of Locked On Nuggets. Shout out to you all. Thank y'all so much for being here with us today. Give us a like on the stream, please, as we continue to get back up into the regular season. So, Matt, I really thought that the Jokic thing was important today. And, you know, we literally, Matt, had talked about this, what was it, last Friday? About what his demeanor was going to be.
Yep.
I thought it was not something to be accidental. Because I remember, was it 2 years ago when we got the footage of Jokic walking into the arena after coming back from Serbia, and he was just kind of like, you know, didn't seem necessarily like he was as happy to be there. But today, the interaction you got with him with Jonas Valanciunas, he was jokey as soon as he got to the podium to start addressing the media. He was smiling throughout. The demeanor felt very refreshed, very calm. Matt, I thought he looked good as well. He looks like a dude that's been playing basketball, that's been working out, taking care of his business. And then on top of that, when he gets to the contract thing, again, I think for us, it was like a matter of fact of like a 3-year deal, 4-year deal. It makes more sense to wait. But obviously outside of the Denver Nuggets universe, people were just like, well, I wonder if there's anything there for free agency for 2027. But then literally he comes out and said, I plan on being a Denver Nugget forever. It just makes more sense. And when you hear his philosophy behind why to wait, Matt, I just thought today, which is such a strong Jokic moment of the team feels ready, the team knows what it has, Jokic feels ready for the moment, and it feels like there's like a good sense of positivity coming from the Nuggets' best player.
He was still understated. Like, he's always going to be kind of in that mode of just like, yeah, we'll see. You know, it's a lot of work and blah, blah, blah. And like, I'm looking, you know, he's going to say positive things like Cam Johnson, like, yo, he's a great shooter and I'm really impressed with this, that, and the other. Like, him being jovial, I think, is like a good sign of him maybe moving past. I do think the players kind of have the same trajectory a lot of times where it's like they come in the league and they're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and love to be there and it's so exciting. And then they get paid and then it's like a lot of grind and there's a lot of criticism and it's a lot of stress and it's a lot of minutes and it's a lot of basketball. And that kind of starts to take away some of the fun. And Jokic talked about this earlier this week when he said, look, I like eating ice cream, but I don't like eating it every day. It's the same thing with basketball, right? But then they kind of come out of that once they hit 30 and they kind of reach that, not end of their career, but the second stage or third stage, I think really is kind of where it's at. And in that, I think is kind of an understanding of, you know, it doesn't bother me anymore because I'm used to it. And he didn't seem bothered to be at media day. He didn't seem bothered to have to talk to us today. He was making jokes. He was having fun. You know, I asked him jokingly, not jokingly, I was like, want to give him opportunity. I always think it's like good to give back to the players for their time. So I was like, hey, what do you think about the Joker 2? And he was like, terrific. You should get a pair. And then he was like, on sale now, $199. But the big, we've kind of buried the lead here. And the big lead here is that Jokic said, my plan is to be a Nugget forever. He first said to be Nuggets forever and then said a Nugget forever. My plan can change and circumstances can shift, but it is important to get that quote from him to just quell it now, to not have the conversation, because Giannis has elected not to say that in Milwaukee. As much as Bucks fans are pissed about it, even today, he wouldn't be like, yeah, my plan is to be a Milwaukee Buck forever. And having that on record means, okay, until there's a report otherwise, we can put that away for now. And that doesn't mean that Jokic is definitely going to stay. It doesn't mean that things can't fall apart. It doesn't mean things can't go to hell, and then he winds up leaving. But it does mean that for right now, you can take a deep breath, a sigh of relief, and chill out. And he doesn't plan to go anywhere as of now. And I take him at his word on that, and I think he's being honest. And so I think his tone was good for today. Like, I was never going to, it's unrealistic for me to expect him to be like, I really think we can do something special this year. It's going to be so amazing. I can't wait to like lock in and get the guys. That's just not how he's wired. And I don't think he needs to be something he's not. So I think it was great that he was so positive, that he was so warm, that he was so friendly, and that he did seem like he was ready to get back to work. That to me is a really big deal. Jokic to me indicated today he's ready to get back to work with the Denver Nuggets. And that is a great, great sign for the season.
One of the things that you most noted throughout the season last year is somebody who was inside the building every day, and you followed the team. You were at the home games. You asked the questions. You wrote the articles. You talked to the players, talked to the coaches. You just talked about Jokic just seemed miserable last year.
Yeah.
And for him to have that shift and to be in this space now, you know, some of this is, you know, Jokic just, like you said, I think as you get older, things change. His life, you know, Lord willing, is doing really well. You know, kids, wife. Were you going to say something?
No, you're good.
And when you think about where they are with basketball, you know, some of this to me too is, Matt, I do feel like from a basketball standpoint, it's like, look, he looks around him. It's like, yo, we have a real roster. Like, we have a lot of players in our team. The ownership has shown a commitment to me, the team. Front office has shown a commitment to me and the team. And one of the things I love, I saw this from Jake Shapiro, so shout out to our brother Jake Shapiro. When Ben Wallace Ben Wallace were talking, they talked about this idea that they told Jokic and Jamal to be brutally honest with them.
Yeah.
About the roster. Did that mean anything for you when you heard that?
Yes, because I think that you actually have to kind of dictate that to Jokic. Because Jokic is like, that's not my job. That's not my pay grade. Like, that's not what I do. Like, I'm just a player. I just do this. Right. But the reality is that Jokic is the most important person in the Nuggets universe. And they need him he has a good sense of whether things are good or not. I think it's best that he's not the one like making decisions. I never think players should make decisions on player acquisitions. I just don't think it typically goes well. I don't think they oftentimes have the best understanding of what they need or what the team needs as a whole. But having that kind of openness and, hey, we want your feedback. We don't want you holding back. We don't want you being like, you know, not being, and this is the other thing, not being paranoid about your job.
Yeah.
Because like, that's the concern. If you don't want that feedback from your players, it's because you're worried that gets back to the owner and now your job's in danger.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of embracing that and being like, no, man, like my job is to set you up. And that's the reality of the modern dynamic in the NBA. Like, that's how this works now.
Yeah.
And I think having that system, again, of accountability, I think is really good. And you want that if you're going to have a much healthier and more open and way better vibe and locker room this season.
And also, you know, Jamal Murray, I do think he deserves credit for what he's done as a leader this year. And I think the offseason workouts, being present, the Rico Hines runs, I think being with his team. And look, again, it's just on video. He looks really good. And one of the things that I most love about what he talked about, look, he said, it's not like I changed like my workout stuff. Like, I haven't changed much of anything.
Yeah.
I rested. Now, he could be, you know, not telling the full truth there, which is up to Jamal. But I do think there's something too, like, hey, man, I just got a chance to chill, like, and not have to play basketball. And then I was able to work out and do what I needed to do and run, get my body in shape and take care of my lungs. I think that all aids the team from the top, which is obviously Murray and Jokic, feels refreshed. And I think that means almost just as much as anything else going into the regular season.
Jamal learned at it very early and was honestly kind of like this when he came into the league. And it's one of the things I do appreciate about him. For as recalcitrant as he can be, Jamal is not one to ever be like, he doesn't talk the talk. He just is like, my actions will prove it.
Mm-hmm.
He's never going to come in and be like, I had a great summer. My 3-pointer is better than it's ever been. I am faster. I am more explosive. I am going to average 27 and 8 this year. Like, he's never going to do that. Most players don't do that. But Jamal in particular is not going to do that. He's just going to do it. And then when you're like, whoa, what did you do? He's going to be like, I could always do this. What do you ask? What are you talking about? That's how he's wired. And he did the same thing here where, again, the front office and coaching staff make a huge deal about him organizing these runs in LA. And Jamal's just like, yeah, it's like what I should do. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, yeah, I feel good. We'll see. Right. It's always understated. It's kind of under promise, over deliver is very much, I think, one of the things that the Nuggets under Murray and Jokic want to do is under promise, over deliver, is like, don't talk it. Don't talk about it. Be about it.
Yeah.
And the problem has kind of been that in the eyes of many fans, Jamal hasn't been as much about it as they've wanted him to be. Still had good seasons, still had playoff success. But, I will say Jamal taking the initiative to be the one setting up these runs. Jamal being the one to be the one that's because Joker's not going to do that. Joker's going to be in Serbia riding horses and drinking beer. So Jamal taking over that ownership and contributing in that way, that moves him in. And honestly, a lot of people, when you give people responsibility, they respond positively. And I think you're maybe starting to see that with Jamal Murray here.
Look, on the other side, we're going to talk about David Adelman, because I actually loved some of the things that I heard coming out of David Adelman. And this is going to be a lot of fun, I think, this upcoming NBA season. We'll talk about all that and more here at Locked On Nuggets. All right, y'all. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts, even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you could end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's all in one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy to use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you, so you can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Now, I love Monarch Money. Again, I've talked about this. I had a whole subscription to the Washington Post that was cost me $37 a month. I didn't even realize it. Monarch found it. I was able to get it off my books, and things that are just blowing up because as you have subscription, the prices can go up, and sometimes without you knowing it, and then you're spending $100, $200, and $300 more dollars than you intended. Monarch helped me to save that money and then redistribute it into savings and investing, and so I really love using their tools. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. We'll be back for the final segment here at Locked On Nuggets. We are back for the final segment of Locked On Nuggets here with Matt Moore, the one, the only. Y'all, this has been a great day. The Denver Nuggets, they were at Media Day today talking through all the things this summer, some things for the future, and really getting a sense of the overall vibes. And so I hope everybody got a chance to watch it. If you didn't, they have the entire feed that's live on YouTube on the Denver Nuggets channel. So, Matt, David Adelman talked about a lot of things. And like I said, I thought the competitiveness that he talked about, competing for roster spot, competing for playing time, he really talked about the things that are going to be central to making sure everybody is ready and understands their assignment. One of the things that I loved, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, Jonas Valanciunas and Nikola Jokic playing together. Now, this is going to be based on matchups. We talked about this, I think, a few months ago when the trade originally happened with Jonas. The Rockets, Cleveland, the Thunder, the Wolves, there are teams that play big you can see that lineup against. Do you think that the twist on that rotation, what do you think about it? And then on the other end of this, when you hear about the zone defense and the Nuggets saying they're going to implement more zone throughout the season to get better at it, What were some of your overall thoughts on some of the things that Adelman talked about from a X's and O's standpoint?
Yeah, so Adelman wanted to stress the non-X's and O's stuff, and then that's pretty typical of like wanting to kind of get into, hey, the important thing is that we play together, that we play for one another, that we, there's accountability and trust and those things. And I talk a lot about those things because coaches and players have told me how important they are. That said, very excited that we actually got some actual X's and O's details in here. So Adam Mares, you'll hear on DMVR, as most of you will be listening, is like super excited about the two big lineup. And like, that's so interesting. And I am very much kind of like we'll see. And not in terms of it working or not working. I don't know, but we'll see how much it presents itself, because I don't know how much you can use it if you're not counter programming another double big. Like if they go with a traditional power forward or a small ball power forward, I don't know that you can do this. An easy answer here would be like, hey, what if we run a zone as a way to kind of limit the defensive capability? But like, to be honest with you, the biggest problem with the zone last year in my mind was Jokic was in the corner usually in that 2-3 and was getting blown by every single time. Like, I don't think Jokic is great in zone. Adelman said, it was funny, Mario asked him about the zone, and he was like, well, I really like zone when we can't play man well enough. And I laughed at that. The other thing here, though, if we're going to move past just the zone thing, is more this. He did say they're going to play more defensive coverages, and Christian let slip that Jared Dudley's already installing some new stuff defensively. This doesn't mean like any sort of like wild, crazy. It's all the same stuff in the NBA. But they're going to have more coverages this season. Like they're just going to use, I think, a wider variety. Now there's ups and downs of that. Mm-hmm. The upside is that you can tailor your approach better to what you're facing on a night-by-night basis, because regardless of how people talk about the NBA with it just being jacking up threes, we really do have right now a pretty healthy ecosystem of different ways that teams play. And being able to tailor your approach, I think, is really valuable. The downside of it is that requires crisper communication, cleaner assignment awareness, and more discipline. And those are things that are easy to mess up on, especially early in the season with a lot of new pieces. But it's exciting from the long term, because it does mean that there is this kind of idea of, yes, we are going to like change some stuff. That was a thing that Adelman talked about. I want to talk about the bench in a second, but I do think that there was enough from Adelman to be like, look, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. He was like, well, on offense, we're probably going to give the ball to Nikola in the post, and Jamal will run 2-man game with him, as a joke. But there's going to be enough different as kind of a remodel of the Nuggets defensively and offensively. And I think both of those things are a really good idea. I don't know what to expect on the double big idea. I just don't know how much it's going to be able to be played, if they can get to it, if they feel comfortable with it, how it's going to execute. What do you think?
Like I said, it's all situational. The difference with Şengün and Steven Adams is Şengün is more mobile than Jokic is from a horizontal standpoint, so you can get away with some of that stuff. Jonas is more mobile than people realize. He's more mobile than Jokic in some ways. Like, he just is a different type of body. So I do think there are matchups that can get away with it. The offensive and defensive rebounding is obviously going to be the component. Now, Jonas is a better shooter than people give him credit for. The numbers don't reflect Jonas as a three-point sniper, but he's had games where he's absolutely buried multiple threes. And if you can find a way to space out the floor on the other end with Jokic, I don't know what a 5-5 pick and roll would look like, how much utility that would have anyway. But even just being able to use that horn set they do. They have the horn set they run with Aaron Gordon. Think about Jamal, Jonas, and Jokic running that, and just the amount of size that you'll have in matchups like that. But one of the things I thought was most interesting, Matt, you talked about this a lot, the stagger. How are we going to break up the stagger for the starters and for the bench? Now, you've also said Jokic needs to stagger more, because that would help out the team, help out the minutes, get more, options in there, all kind of stuff. One of the things he mentioned was he doesn't know if Murray is the answer to that. What did you think about some of the comments they made around like how we're going to utilize the personnel and who's going to be where and how they might be slotting some of their minutes?
I was very, very surprised that Adelman actually spoke about this, because I was expecting, we haven't gotten there yet. We'll see how camp goes. And I haven't even started to think about that yet. that's what I was expecting. And instead he was like, I asked him about the bench being such a problem. And he was like, I do think that we have to really kind of focus on getting a plan together about finding the best guys to play in those units, the best guys to play together in those minutes without Nikola. And he was like, you're right. We can't go -12 without Nikola. We're undoing all of the good work from our starters. He's like, I don't have to worry about the starters. I know the starters are going to be successful, which is honestly probably the way that it should have been, where there was like a lot of focus, honestly, on the starters under Malone. And he was kind of like, yeah, on the bench, we'll just kind of get through that. And it's like the opposite, where it's like, look, starters are auto run. It's give the ball to Jokic and Jamal, and they'll figure out how to make plays, and they'll score. Defensively, you need work. But the bench units are really what it does. And what I really loved was that Adelman didn't just talk about finding the best rotations and about, hey, maybe the best answer is not staggering Jamal. Maybe it's staggering Cam. Maybe Cam Johnson's the one that's going to stagger, or Aaron Gordon, or Christian Brown. Being open to those, let's see what this looks like in different iterations. But the other thing he said is it's not just on finding the right players, but it's on me and my staff to give them a plan, whether that's create turnovers and get out in transition, running the ball through post-ups for Jonas, whatever it is, they need a plan. And I was like, thank you, Jesus, because that's all I've wanted to see from the Nuggets second unit is, hey, let's actually try and build a second team. Because the Jokic team is what it is, and it's freaking great. All you got to do is solve for those minutes. And everything I heard from Adelman on that in limited comments with a long way to go and injuries and everything else, I am telling you, you should be very encouraged as a Nuggets fan about the fact of how David Adelman is thinking through these problems.
Agree. I was very impressed with Adelman today. He's very straightforward. He answers the questions directly. You can tell he thinks very deeply about what he's going to say prior to saying it. He's also funny. He's more of a quick, off-the-cuff kind of guy, the Michael Porter Jr. comments, which he did say he showed a lot of love to Michael Porter Jr. and just the importance that he had, obviously, within the organization. But then the last comment I thought was hilarious. I really just am impressed overall. I think John Wallace, being an outsider coming into the building, he was able to evaluate a lot of the things he saw from an outsider perspective with the Wolves and ways that even the Wolves have been taking advantage of Denver. He answered a lot of questions with Ben Tenzer about the roster. Jamal Murray feels like he's in a good place. Jokic is in maybe the best place I've seen him come in from an attitude standpoint. Aaron Gordon's about business. Christian Brown's about business. Cam Johnson just wants to compete and win at a high level, and he seemed willing to do whatever he can. And Bruce Brown, reportedly from Marcus Spears, was ready to go back to Denver the day he landed in Toronto. So I think all of that you put together, Matt, I think the team is overall just headed in a really strong place. And I think the culture is going to be much healthier than it was last year.
It's a low bar. I think that's pretty well known by everybody, but it does feel like there's a breath of fresh air. I put in the rundown here on youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets that low stress and good vibes. Sometimes you can come into a season with expectations and everybody's trying to gear up to meet that. And that's bad because you got 6 months of basketball and Adelman was clear about it. Like you put in the work in and you rack up wins so you can get to the good part. Like Adelman is not a, like every single game going to be going for the throat guy. He wants to manage an NBA regular season, which is what this team needs at this point in its evolutionary curve. So, I think the vibes were exactly, I think, what I wanted to hear, which is optimism, a determination. But more than that, how we kind of talked about, like, I wanted to hear them be like, we're going for it. There's a specialness in this group. Swipa, what I wasn't expecting was how much of it's on me from everybody. Like Aaron and CB being like, we got to give better effort defensively. We just got to give better effort. And like, we got to be responsible for the defense. And Jokic being like, yeah, I'm going to have to take more responsibility and speaking up and being that kind of voice and getting guys acclimated. And Cam Johnson being like, I'm going to have to take responsibility for adjusting and not just being a role player, but also using what I've learned as more of a primary option. Tim Hardaway Jr. and Bruce Brown, everybody was like, what can I do to help this team win? And that's the tone that you wanted to hear on Media Day.
Y'all, I hope you enjoyed watching today's episode. Hope you enjoy watching Media Day. If you have not, again, go to the Denver Nuggets channel on YouTube. You can find the entire recording of the press conference. And then also make sure to follow Matt Moore. Make sure to follow Ryan Blackburn. They're doing write-ups. I'm talking about Substack, all kind of stuff. Mile High Sports. You can find ways to interact with a bunch of written content. This is the day that we've been waiting for, y'all. Make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe. Give us a 5-star review on the Apple, iTunes, and Spotify side. Y'all know what time it is. That's Matt Moore. This is Swipa. See you on the other side.